Thanks for joining the first episode of my podcast series, Mulling Over. I will start with recounting an incident that happened with me and then steer to the topic of my first podcast. In 2015, I had traveled to Chicago on business, and on the day I was returning, I checked out of my hotel early, as is my usual habit. My flight was in the evening, and I left for the airport at noon, hoping to spend a lot of time in the airport lounge. When I reached the airport, I was told that they will let me in only 3 hours later, and I had to wait in the lobby or near the ticket counters. It was an area filled with ticket counters of all airlines with very little place to sit. There were no sort of cafes or eat outs around. All the chairs were occupied, and I sat down on the floor, leaning on a large pillar. It was a big square pillar. I pulled my luggage around me and took out two books I was reading. One was a novel, and the other was a Filmfare magazine I had picked up at Bangalore airport. May have been reading for 15-20 minutes when someone sat next to me on the other side of the pillar. My guards came down when I saw through the corner of my eyes that it was a lady. So under the square pillar, she was on the side of the square next to me. On my other side was a pathway with people walking around, and the side behind me was directly facing some chairs with people on them. She spoke to someone on her phone in a foreign language. She hung up and settled herself, making some rustling noises with her luggage. I moved my luggage, which was in between us, to front of me to make place for her luggage. She thanked me and made some small talk. She said it was a long wait and asked me where I was going. I said India, and she said she's traveling to some place. I could not make out what, but did not try to ask her again. She had this exotic way of speaking English that some Europeans and Middle Eastern people have, like they say India, traveling. She was pretty and was wearing a light green kaftan top with some yellow patchwork on it, on a white khaki kind of trousers. She could have been in her late 20s or 30s, hard to remember now. She had a face where if she smiled, she looked very pretty, and if not smiling, she would look serious or sad. After some small talk, 50% of which I hardly understood, but nodded and smiled along, I wanted to go to the washroom. I got up and pulled my luggage. She said she will look after it, but like a true prudent traveler, I said never mind and continued to pull my luggage along. She asked me if she could have my magazine. I left both my books with her and went to the washroom. I came back to the same place. Although, if not for the books, knowing me, I would have drifted to some other place. I sat down. There was another hour left. She was sweeping through the magazine and said, Indian women are very beautiful. And I replied, celebrities in any country are. And something she said, and I was nodding along, and at some point she said something and smiled, and I did not understand, did not want to ask her to repeat, and just looked at her and smiled along. I was getting bored with this whole thing and went back to my book and pretended to read intently. Few minutes into it, I found her hand on my knees, a little up my knees. I was confused for a second. Then she took my hand into hers, and she was looking at me with a weird smile. Took me a split second to react. I stood up, gathered my luggage, and went to the Qatar counter, which was just a few steps away. Although I was 30 minutes early, they let me in, checked in my luggage, got my boarding pass, and went in. I guess I was scared, rattled in a weird way. I was securing my passport and boarding pass into my handbag and was looking directions to find the lounge when she came in front of me and said, I'm very, very sorry, please forgive me. She had her hands folded like a namaste. She just said that and sprinted into the airport crowd. I was kind of relieved and kind of puzzled, but forgot about it over the journey, finished my journey with no more excitement. I have not told this story to many, maybe because of the usual fear of mockery or standard fear of a woman. We women, no matter what, first feel guilty as if we are at wrong when someone makes inappropriate pass at us. Also, a gay making a pass at you is not something I felt comfortable talking about then. No, I'm not homophobic, but I had never experienced something like this before. Now, why did I remember this? That comes to the topic of this podcast. A couple of months back, or rather a year back, 2019, just before December holidays, over a coffee with some friends, in the context of working women and different people we come across, I recounted this incident to them as a joke. Really, I meant for it to be joked with a few laughs around. One lady's reaction befuddled me. Her exact expression was, "Oh my god, it is so scary. These people should be locked up and beaten." While I have known this lady forever, this was the first time I saw this side of her. I tried to tell her it was okay that woman in the airport apologized to me, and it would have been inappropriate even if a man had made a pass at me. But she rolled her eyes and shook her body in a shiver to imply it was a disgusting experience. I left it there, and shortly after, a couple of weeks later, probably, in another conversation with some other friends, we were discussing what good movies to watch. And I mentioned I wanted to watch Shubh Mangal Savdan, a comedy movie about gay couple convincing their parents to accept them. Again, the reaction there too was of disgust. Also, in this conversation, I found out that they did not know exactly what LGBTQ stood for. And whether it was a pretense or real, they did not seem to know the differences among them from a sexual orientation point of view. I found this nonchalant attitude for LGBT community among heterosexuals worthy of mulling over. So, homophobia is the topic today to mull over. Can go on and on about gay history. Sappho from Greek history, Oscar Wilde, Alexander the Great, even Shakespeare are few of the real life people who have known to have been gay. Greek god Zeus is portrayed gay. Some prominent characters in Achilles and Hercules were gay. In Hinduism, Vedas do not discriminate between homosexual sex or a heterosexual sex. It only talks about procreative or non procreative sex. And in Kama Sutra, a part of our Vedas, same gender sex is given the same importance as opposite gender sex. So, consensual homosexuality was a widely accepted practice, like how you would accept a person who looks different, a tall or a short person, or a person with different colored eyes. What happened really was probably perversion got mixed. Slavery, pedophile, forced prostitution gave it a wrong place in the society, and over time, only procreative form of sex became acceptable. But homosexuality never went away. Why would it? Because just like the people with different body types are born, homosexual people continue to be born. And unfortunately, there continues to be tragedies due to them not being accepted. That incident where the woman at the airport made a pass at me is as bad as a man making a pass at me, equally inappropriate. But at least she apologized. How many heterosexual men do that? If it were a man, maybe my guard would have been upfront, but that does not make it less inappropriate. And any kind of sexual perversion, both homo and hetero, is disgusting. But somehow perversion has got a lot of attention only in the homosexual area, where, as in reality, it is equally a menace in hetero world as well. So, spiritually or socially speaking, someone's interest in sexual preferences should not matter as long as it is not perverted or abusive. One cannot really blame people who are disgusted by the idea of homosexuality, because how many of us have really been brought up with knowledge around LGBTQ? Leave alone homosexual love, we are not encouraged to speak of heterosexual love as well. If at all homosexuality was spoken of, it is often with a backdrop that it is not normal. I myself have mocked at guys who like to wear pink clothes or girls who dress like a boy. Only in the last probably 1.5 decades, since last 1.5 decades, I have come to realize that it should not be a topic to be concerned about at all. It has always been implied to us that homosexuality is to be feared because it is not normal. And in our upbringing, we have never been told that homosexuality, while it may not be common, but is completely normal. In this whole incident, two mulling points come out to me, and one really funny one for me is really in an international airport when someone who's traveling to a different country than yours makes a pass at you. What is the goal to be achieved for the next 1 or 2 hours you're in the airport? Probably the Indian in me will never understand this and could be a common norm in other cultures. Anyway, but the key mullover point is, can an unperverted sexual preference become as unimportant and boring a conversation as to what color undergarments a person could be wearing? And can we get to a place in the society where everyone believes that heterosexuality is not the only normal sexual preference, it's just the common one? Would like to end this discussion with statement from Pope Reverend Francis in the recent news. The Pope has stood strong with the LGBT community, and this is what he had to say. They are children of God and have a right to a family. Nobody should be thrown out or be made miserable because of it. Thank you for listening to me. Really appreciate your time for this. I look forward to hearing from you on your views or any questions you may have. Do message me, email me, WhatsApp me with your feedback and suggestions to improve. Looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you.